The scream echoed through the Kang mansion just after midnight. Every servant stopped what they were doing. Bodyguards rushed toward the master's private wing. Mrs. Choi dropped the silver tray in her hands as she watched a young African maid burst out of Kang Ji-hoon's bedroom, her face as pale as snow. "It's the boss," she cried. "Somebody help him." The mansion erupted into chaos. Within seconds, armed guards surrounded the hallway, believing an assassin had slipped inside. Lee Min-soo, the Mafia boss's most trusted lieutenant, kicked the bedroom door open with his pistol drawn. What he saw made him freeze. Kang Ji-hoon, the man feared across South Korea's underworld, was lying unconscious beside his bed. His breathing was shallow. His lips had turned blue. A broken medicine bottle lay on the floor. The African maid knelt beside him, desperately trying to keep him awake. "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Don't die." One of the guards immediately pointed his gun at her. "Step away from the boss." She slowly raised her hands. "I didn't hurt him." "You expect us to believe that?" another guard shouted. "You were alone in his room." The young woman looked around at the furious faces surrounding her. She knew no one would believe her. After all, she had only worked at the mansion for 3 weeks. She was a stranger. An outsider. An African maid with no family in Korea and no powerful name to protect her. Mrs. Choi pushed through the crowd. "What happened?" she demanded. The maid swallowed hard. "I was cleaning the upstairs hallway when I heard something crash. I knocked on the door. No one answered. I came inside." Her voice trembled. "And I found him on the floor." The guards exchanged suspicious glances. Lee Min-soo's eyes narrowed. "How did you know which medicine to give him?" The question hung in the air. The maid hesitated. Then she quietly replied, "Because I've seen these symptoms before." Everyone stared at her. "Who are you?" Lee Min-soo asked. The young woman lowered her eyes. "My name is Zara Mensah. I was a final-year medical student before my father died. I had to leave school and come to Korea to earn money for my younger brothers." The room fell silent. Just then, the family doctor rushed in, examined Ji-hoon for less than a minute, and looked up in disbelief. "Who placed him on his side?" No one answered. The doctor looked directly at Zara. "You did." She nodded. "And who removed the pills from his mouth before he choked?" "I did." The doctor slowly stood. If she hadn't acted when she did. He looked around the room. Kang Ji-hoon would already be dead. Every servant gasped. Every guard lowered their weapon. Only moments earlier, they had been ready to arrest her. Now they realized the quiet African maid hadn't broken into the Mafia boss's bedroom to harm him. She had walked in just in time to save the most powerful man in the mansion. But none of them knew the biggest surprise was still to come. When Kang Ji-hoon finally opened his eyes, he looked directly at Zara. And whispered a name that no one in the mansion had heard in over 20 years. "My little sister." The room fell into stunned silence. Because everyone knew one thing. Kang Ji-hoon had never had a sister. Or so they had always believed. Before anyone could ask him what he meant, his eyes rolled back and he slipped into unconsciousness again. The doctor barked orders. Guards cleared the hallway. Mrs. Choi grabbed Zara's arm and pulled her into a side room, away from the chaos, away from the guns. "Explain yourself," Mrs. Choi said. Her voice was sharp, but her eyes were not unkind. "Now. Before Lee Min-soo decides your explanation isn't good enough." Zara's hands were still shaking. "I don't know what he meant. I've never met him before tonight. I've never been in his room before tonight." "Then why did he call you that?" "I don't know." Mrs. Choi studied her for a long moment. 22 years she had run this household. 22 years she had watched men lie to save themselves. This girl was not lying. Whatever was happening, the girl was as confused as everyone else. "Stay here," Mrs. Choi said. "Don't move. Don't speak to anyone until I return. If you've ever watched someone hand you a secret they didn't mean to give you, you know exactly how Zara felt standing in that room. Some stories don't start with a fall. They start with someone catching you before you knew you were falling. Stay with this one, it only gets heavier from here." 3 hours later, the mansion had gone quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when everyone is holding their breath waiting for the next one. The doctor confirmed what the guards refused to say out loud. Kang Ji-hoon had not simply collapsed from stress or exhaustion. He had been poisoned. Not with something crude, not with something a rival gang would use to send a message. This was slow. Precise. Administered in small doses, mixed into the blood pressure medication he took every night without fail. A poison meant to look like a man's heart was finally giving out under the weight of his empire, not like a man was being murdered in his own bed. Lee Min-soo stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, jaw tight. Someone in this house did this, he said. Someone with access to his private medicine cabinet. Someone he trusts. The doctor didn't argue. Neither did the silence that followed. Word of the poisoning was kept from the rest of the staff, but word of Zara was not. By morning, whispers moved through the mansion faster than the guards could contain them. The African maid who saved the boss's life. The African maid who knew things she shouldn't know. The African maid the boss called his sister. Some servants looked at her with new respect. Others looked at her the way you look at something you don't understand and have decided to fear instead. And one person in that mansion did not whisper at all. She simply watched. Madame Kang, the boss's aunt by marriage and the last surviving elder of the family, had lived in the west wing of the mansion for 30 years. She rarely left her private quarters. She rarely spoke to staff directly. But that morning, she summoned Mrs. Choi to her sitting room and asked a single question. The girl who found him. What is her family name? Mensa, madam. Zara Mensa. Something shifted behind Madame Kang's eyes. Something old. Something she buried quickly, the way a woman buries things she has had 30 years of practice burying. Ghanaian. Yes, madam. Bring her to me. Mrs. Choi hesitated. Madam, the girl has done nothing wrong. She saved the bosses. I did not ask for your opinion of her character, Madame Kang said quietly. I asked you to bring her to me. If a name from the past can make a woman's hands go still after 30 years, imagine what it does when that name walks back through your front door wearing someone else's face. Keep watching, because Madame Kang is about to meet a ghost, and ghosts in this family do not stay buried quietly. If this kind of slow burn mystery is your thing, tap that follow button now, because episode 2 of Zara's story is already loading in the comments below. Zara stood in the doorway of Madame Kang's sitting room, hands folded in front of her, the way her mother had taught her to stand before people who held power over her life. Madame Kang did not rise from her chair. She studied Zara from across the room the way a jeweler studies a stone, searching for the flaw, or searching for the fire. Sit, Madame Kang said. Zara sat. Your mother, Madame Kang said. What was her name? Zara blinked. Abina. Abina Mensa. And her profession? She was a nurse, madam. She worked abroad for many years before she passed. Where abroad? Zara's voice grew smaller. Here. In Korea. Before I was born. She rarely spoke of it. Madame Kang's fingers tightened around the arm of her chair. She never spoke of a hospital in Busan. Of a boy she treated there. A boy no family wanted. Zara shook her head slowly. No, madam. She kept very little from her time here. She said Korea was complicated for her. Madame Kang exhaled, a long, controlled breath, the breath of a woman who had spent decades learning to hide what her face wanted to do. You may go, she said. Zara rose, confused, and reached the door before Madame Kang spoke again, quietly, almost to herself. Complicated is one word for it. That night, Kang Ji-hoon woke for the second time. He was weak. His voice was hoarse. But his mind was clear, and the first thing he asked for was not his lieutenant, not his lawyer, not his gun. He asked for the girl. Zara entered the room under armed escort, unsure whether she was walking toward gratitude or an execution. In this world, she had learned quickly, the two often looked identical from the outside. Ji-hoon studied her face for a long time before he spoke. You have her eyes, he said finally. Whose eyes, sir? A woman who saved my life when I was 17 years old and nobody in this family wanted me to survive. Zara said nothing. She had learned, in 3 weeks in this house, that silence was often safer than questions. My father had 2 sons, Ji-hoon continued. I was the second. The unwanted one. The one whose mother was not from a family the Kangs considered worthy. When I was 17, my older brother's men beat me nearly to death in an alley outside Busan and left me there to die quietly, so there would be no scandal, no complication, no reason for the empire to ever be split between two heirs. His eyes drifted to the window. A nurse found me. A foreign nurse, working a night shift no one else wanted. She hid me from the men who came looking to finish the job. She treated my wounds in a supply closet because she didn't trust the hospital records. She sat with me for 3 nights until I was strong enough to run. And before I left, I asked her name so that one day, if I survived long enough to matter, I could repay her. He looked back at Zara. She told me to call her nothing. She said knowing her name would only put her in danger. But she let me call her Nuna. Older sister. And I told her that if she ever needed anything at all, she should send her family to find Kang Ji-hoon. The room had gone very still. Her name, he said, was Abina. Zara's breath caught in her throat. That was my mother. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Outside the window, the mansion's guards patrolled the grounds, unaware that the men they protected had just found the one debt in his entire criminal empire that money could never repay. When you walked into my room 3 weeks ago as staff, Ji-hoon said quietly, I didn't recognize the name Mensa. It's common enough. But when I opened my eyes tonight and saw your face over mine the same way I saw hers over mine 22 years ago, I knew. She never told me any of this, Zara whispered. She never told me she saved someone. She never told me his name became powerful. She protected you the same way she protected me, Ji-hoon said. By making sure you never knew enough to be in danger. If you think this is where the story turns soft, where the danger fades and everything settles into gratitude and reunion, stay a little longer. Because someone in this mansion has known the secret far longer than tonight, and she has spent 30 years making sure it never resurfaced. And now it has walked in wearing an apron and holding a mop. The next morning, Ji-hoon summoned Lee Min-soo and gave him a single order, find out who had access to his medication in the 72 hours before he collapsed. The list was short. It always is, in a house built on loyalty bought with fear. Mrs. Choi, who managed the household staff and had access to every room. 2 junior maids who rotated cleaning duties in the private wing. Madam Kang's personal attendant, who occasionally delivered items between the West Wing and the master's quarters. And Madam Kang herself, whose family was never searched, never questioned, never suspected, because in 22 years, no one had ever needed to suspect her. Lee Min-soo laid the list in front of Ji-hoon without commentary. A good lieutenant knows when silence says more than accusation. Ji-hoon read the names twice. Watch the attendant, he said. Quietly. No one is to know we're watching. 3 days passed with no incident, no confession, no confirmation. The mansion returned to something resembling normal, though Zara noticed the guards now watched her differently, not with suspicion, but with something closer to reverence, and she found she liked that even less. On the 4th night, Zara was summoned back to Madame Kang's sitting room. This time, the older woman did not sit behind her desk. She stood by the window, back turned, watching the garden below. Do you know what it costs a woman to bury a truth for 30 years? Madame Kang asked, without turning around. Zara said nothing. I was the one who told my husband's men where to find Ji-hoon that night, Madame Kang said. I did not want him dead. I want you to understand that. I only wanted him gone. Sent away. Given money and a new name in another country, far from an inheritance that was never going to be shared with a boy his own father was ashamed of. Zara's blood went cold. But your mother interfered, Madame Kang continued. She hid him. She healed him. And when he vanished from that alley without a body to bury, my husband's men assumed a rival gang had taken the corpse to make a point. No one ever suspected a nurse. No one ever suspected me. She turned finally, and her face, for the first time, showed something like exhaustion. For 22 years I have lived beside the boy I tried to erase, watching him become more powerful than the son I actually gave birth to. And 3 weeks ago, the daughter of the only person who ever stopped me walked through my front door wearing a housekeeping uniform. You poisoned him, Zara said quietly. It was not a question. I protected 30 years of silence, Madame Kang corrected. The medication was meant to look like his heart, weakened by age and pressure, finally failing on its own. A quiet death. A dignified death. Not a war between his enemies and mine. I did not do it out of hatred, child. I did it out of exhaustion. I am tired of losing to a boy I tried to remove from this family before he ever had the chance to inherit it. And now? Zara asked. Now that I know. Madame Kang's eyes were unreadable. Now, I suppose, we find out whether you are your mother's daughter in more than just your eyes. This is the part where most stories would have Zara scream for the guards, or run, or beg for mercy. But grief and hardship had taught Zara something Madame Kang had forgotten in 30 years of comfort: quiet people are not always weak people. If you've ever underestimated someone because they spoke softly, you already know what's coming. And if this story has you gripped, drop a comment below telling me who you think walks out of that room, because not everyone does. I'm not my mother, Zara said. My mother chose silence because silence kept her alive to raise her children. I don't have that luxury anymore. My brother is sitting in a Ghanaian prison for a crime he didn't commit, convicted because the men who actually did it had money and my family did not. I came to Korea to make enough to hire a lawyer who could reopen his case. I didn't come here for revenge, and I didn't come here for gratitude. I came here to save one person. Not two. Not a legacy. Not a family feud that started before I was born. She stepped closer, and for the first time, Madame Kang looked, briefly, unsettled. But you just confessed to attempted murder in front of the one witness in this house with nothing to lose, Zara continued. And I think, somewhere in 30 years of silence, you forgot what that means. Madame Kang's composure cracked, just slightly. What do you want, girl? Money. Position. A place in this family that was never offered to you. I want the same thing my mother wanted, Zara said. To do what's right and go home. She turned toward the door. But I won't pretend I didn't hear what you said tonight. And I think you already know I won't. Guards were waiting in the hallway before Zara had finished her sentence, not because she had called for them, but because Lee Min-soo, following Ji-hoon's order to watch quietly, had placed a listening device in that sitting room the moment Madame Kang's name appeared on his suspect list. Madame Kang was escorted from her quarters that night, not in chains, but with the particular gentleness reserved for family members whose crimes a household would prefer to handle without a public trial. What happened to her afterward was a matter the Kang family kept behind closed doors, the way powerful families always do. But the poisoning stopped. And the truth, finally, stopped being buried. 3 weeks later, Kang Ji-hoon stood strong enough to walk without support for the first time since the incident. He found Zara in the mansion's east garden, where she had taken to spending her breaks, staring at flowers she couldn't name in a language that still felt foreign in her mouth. I looked into your brother's case, he said. Zara turned sharply. You didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. He held out a folder. I have people. Lawyers. Investigators. Men who owe me favors older than you. Your brother's conviction was built on testimony from a man who has since become a business partner of the men who actually committed the crime. It will not survive an appeal with the right pressure behind it. Zara stared at the folder as if it might disappear if she blinked. Why, she whispered. You already owed my mother a debt. You already saved my life by trusting me in that room instead of shooting me. Why keep giving? Because you called me a stranger's obligation and I want to prove you wrong, Ji-hoon said. Your mother didn't save me because she wanted something back. She saved me because it was right, even though it endangered her. I'm not doing this to make you stay. I'm doing this because it's the only way I know how to finish what she started. For a moment, the garden was silent except for wind moving through leaves neither of them could name. There's a place for you here, Ji-hoon added carefully. Not as staff. As family, if you wanted it. My sister, in more than just the word I used the night I nearly died. If this were the kind of story that ends in romance, this is where it would happen, the powerful man, the woman who saved him, a slow fade into forever. But Zara's story was never about being chosen. It was about choosing for herself. And what she said next surprised even the men who thought he already understood her. Zara took the folder and held it against her chest like something precious. Thank you, she said. For my brother. For believing me that night when everyone else wanted me arrested. For the debt you kept for 22 years when you had every reason to forget it. But? Ji-hoon asked, hearing the shape of the sentence before she finished it. But I didn't survive everything I survived to become someone's permanent gratitude, Zara said. Not yours. Not this family's. I came to Korea to save my brother, not to inherit a war I never asked to be part of. When his case is overturned, I'm going home. I'm going to finish my medical degree. I'm going to become the kind of doctor my mother would have been if her life had gone differently. And if I asked you to stay, Ji-hoon said quietly, then I'd tell you that the greatest thing you can do to honor my mother isn't keeping her daughter in a mansion out of guilt, Zara said. It's letting her daughter go finish what she started. 6 months later, A courtroom in Accra overturned Kwame Mensah's conviction on the grounds of falsified testimony and prosecutorial misconduct. He walked out of prison into his sister's arms, a free man for the first time in 4 years. Zahra Mensah returned to medical school the following semester, tuition quietly paid in full by a wire transfer from Korea that arrived with no note, no strings, and no request for anything in return. She never went back to the Kang mansion. She didn't need to. Some women save your life and disappear into the night without ever needing your name attached to their story. Some daughters finish the sentence their mothers never got to write. Zahra wasn't looking for a family she could inherit. She built one back home, with her own 2 hands, exactly the way her mother taught her, quietly, fiercely, and without ever waiting for anyone's permission. If Zahra's story moved you tonight, don't scroll past without hitting subscribe, because the strongest women in these stories never need saving twice, and there's another one waiting for you in the next episode.